Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome. If it's your first time here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome too. Craig will give us a run through of all the logistics, but do take a minute to notice your Zoom toolbar. There's two really handy buttons. If you haven't found it already, it's looking like a waterfall. The chat is there. And then there's also a Q&A button too. And that Q&A, we know that there's 101 and more questions for Kwame this morning. So use the Q&A. It really helps Craig to stay on par with what the questions are coming in, because as you can see, they could get very lost in the chat. Every Friday we pause, and it's a pause for reflection in connection with where we're situated, the land that we are speaking, joining, learning together on. This is a picture of our main campus in Calgary. The building is Heritage Hall, and it is steeped in heritage. When my children were very young, they used to call it the castle. But Heritage Hall it is, and has been there since the very beginning of the 1900s. I can't remember the exact date, maybe 1907. But long before that, it was hunting grounds, and hunting grounds for what we now call the Treaty 7 region, or the traditional territories of the Blackfoot and the people of now Treaty 7. This includes the Siksika, the Piikani, the Kaurna, the Tsuut'ina, the Iyahi, Nakota of Bears, Porchiniki, and Goodstoney. We are situated in an area that the Blackfoot tribes used to call McKintis, where the Bow River meets the Elbow River. Today, we call it Calgary. It's also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta. Thanks, Craig.
Perfect. Thank you, Jenny.
Welcome.
And folks, thank you for joining us this morning. If you're a regular, you will notice we have a third joining us today, and I'm very pleased that Kwame Asidu, the CEO of BrainToy, has joined us. Kwame, it's great to have you here. Kwame, BrainToy, a company that focuses on democratizing AI by machine learning, by making machine learning more accessible and practical for business. Kwame has a ton of knowledge and experience in this space. He's done lots of great work with SAIT, and we're very excited to have you join us here this morning to kind of help us get our heads wrapped around AI, which is ironic considering AI is in SAIT's name, but we might need some help understanding it. So thank you for joining us.
It's an absolute pleasure, Craig. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. So we were chatting beforehand, and I thought maybe might be worthwhile very quickly just to do level set on perhaps three terms or three things that we may speak about this morning. And that's AI, ML, machine learning, and LLMs, large language models. And actually, Evelyn, you are correct. There is AI in my name as well. So there's a joke in there somewhere. I haven't quite found it yet, but that's okay. So Kwame, very quickly, what is AI?
So AI, it's simply a technology that we have created. I mean, the world has created that mimics human intelligence. And the goal is to help us use this human-like intelligence to perform tasks like learning, reasoning, and then decision making. There are various forms of it, and you did mention machine learning and deep learning, and I think we'll get towards it. Sorry, LLM.
Yep. And so let's just go there next if you want. Machine learning.
Yeah.
ML.
So it's a branch of AI. AI is the big umbrella, and some of the technologies or the tools you can use or the techniques you can use includes machine learning. And so machine learning is simply when you are building solutions or training model on historical data. So whenever you have history and you want to be able to teach a machine to learn from it so you can identify these patterns and use them in making decisions proactively, we say you're doing machine learning. And then there is deep learning, and which we can also say is a component of machine learning, because you can use, is another technique. You can use deep learning to train data or to build models on historical data. But deep learning has really proven to be useful in solving complex problems, especially when we're dealing with images, when we're dealing with videos, we're dealing with audio or signal processing. They've proven to be very useful. And Deep learning has proven to be very useful in training vast amount of data, which we now call LLMs.
There we go.
Right. So the sheer size of the amount of data that deep learning techniques, neural network has been applied to, uh, in training and building these models that we can now interact with as if we're interacting with humans, basically is what LLMs are.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for that. That just might be important. Probably some folks on here know that. Others might be going, what is all of that? So I wanted to just kind of provide that level set before we start. And so again, folks, as we progress, please do keep the chat going. And if you end up with a specific question you want to pose to Kwame based on anything that we talking about here, try and pop it into the Q&A in Zoom. So we've defined this, Kwame. I guess the question here I'm going to kick off with and turn it over to you and Jenny is, so as leaders, why should we care? What does it mean to us? How does it affect our teams? How should it affect our thinking as a leader? There's your trailhead. Pick a path to go down. Because we're not going to solve the world's mysteries of AI and leadership in 40 minutes, but we may come up with a few nuggets for folks.
Yeah.
So,
should I go on one of them?
yeah, please do.
Go.
Please do. Go.
Wherever you want. That
Yeah.
was 6 questions. Pick your question.
Yeah.
Well, I think I would say why do we care, or why should we care? And one simple answer is that we have been reactive for a long time. Leaders and organizations have always been reactive. And, we get all these BI reports all the time, and they are, what happened? How many sales, how many customers did we lose? How much did we sell? This is all after the fact. And for the first time, we have the opportunity to be proactive. And we've always heard prevention is better than cure. So anyone who is proactive will always be ahead of someone who is reactive. And so as a leader, leading beyond any title, I think it's important for you to be proactive. So in very simple terms, I think that's the reason why we should care, because otherwise we will lag behind those who are embracing this technology.
Yeah. Okay, you sold me. Proactive rather than reactive. Totally engaged. And nice job of leading beyond any title. That's cool. Very cool. But most of the leaders, okay, so I move around leaders all the time. And most of the people, like, we are so differentiated on what we know. There are some who are still afraid of chat GPT, let's put it that way. And there are some, like, my connection with is expanded a little bit from chat GPT only into some lovely person called Claude, who's not a person at all, who does a better job than GPT because there's a bit of an emotional deal in there. And then there's others who are really dabbling in this space. So if you're a leader and you're afraid because you just don't know where to start, like, I think that's one of the problems with this. It's overwhelming. And look, I'm almost lost in our introduction here with all the acronyms and what they do. How do we begin to be proactive?
Yeah, I think well, maybe two things come to mind, and one of them is on our slides here, which is a mindset.
Yeah.
So the first thing I think is our mindset. In Canada, and I'm sure most of you are already aware of this, there was an Ipsos report 2 years ago, 2023. Out of 28 countries, Canada was last in almost all categories, not almost all categories, and Canada was number 1 in one category. Excuse me, and that was skepticism in about AI. So our mindset basically is that we don't know what this is and we're afraid of it. We don't know how to embrace it. So if we can shift our mindset, that will be very useful. And so our first slide, which is our one big idea, is to shift our mind towards AI being a decision enhancer and not a decision maker. Now, what does that mean? That basically means that this fear, I actually don't know where it's coming from. If it's simply because or the skepticism around AI, I don't know if it's simply because we don't know this technology, or it's also because of something I've heard a lot of people say that they're going to be replaced, right? So it's really important for us to know that AI doesn't replace you as a professional and also as a leader. In fact, it doesn't replace leadership at all. It amplifies it. So you need to, as a leader, make that final call, but AI will help you surface those patterns and insights and opportunities that would otherwise go unnoticed. And so
Mm.
it will really help you to make these decisions. Now, the second thing I think is also some form of awareness.
Yeah.
So once we have that shift in mindset, then knowing a little bit about what this is, what it can do, what are some of the success stories that other organizations or people have had by embracing this technology, I think will really help us to begin to embrace it as opposed to being afraid of it. So, yeah, I think that the two ways to begin to start is first shifting our mindset so from being afraid to embracing it, and then getting some education, being aware of what this technology is, what it's capable of doing, and how it can help us in our day-to-day life and in our jobs.
Yeah. The key thing you said there is for me, a decision enhancer. How to leverage it as a partner, how to you know, take it to prompt it properly, take its output, and then make it your own. Right? If you're
Yes.
prompting, I think the danger in this conversation, I think sometimes too, is thinking too much and leaning into GPT being AI. That is one model of
Yeah.
many that is out there. Jenny mentioned Claude. Perplexity has replaced Google for me as a search tool. I will tell you that. Like, if you want to up your search game, go play with Perplexity. But there's so many AI tools that exist out there right now. Gamma for presentations, et cetera. Kwame, you could probably list 100 of them that I've never even heard of before. But I think where the danger in this is just blindly accepting what AI produces or a large language model produces and
Mm.
not bringing your own thinking, critical thinking to it, not working with your team to support their use of it in the right instances, but also ensuring that they are testing and not just spitting out what ChatGPT is saying to you. I don't know what your reaction is to that, but
I do agree. They're giving us information, insights, whatever it is that we're getting from it, but we are the subject matter experts. It is true that we've trained this thing on vast amounts of data and it has knowledge or expertise in various fields. But you as a domain expert fully understand your domain more than anything else. And so you need to critique it. In fact, you need to peg it against itself. Sometimes
Mm.
when you need to ask it to verify what it's giving you. And with your experience and your knowledge, you need to critique it. You need to, I would say, rewrite it basically and get it to correct itself so that the information you receive in the end is accurate.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we've queued quite a few questions already, so I'm going to try to take these in no particular order here, but we've kind of touched on this a little bit in terms of it being a decision enhancer, not a decision maker. But what do you think about the question is, what do you think about the ethics of decision making using AI for leaders when working with people?
Yeah. I think ethics is really important in AI. There's a lot of research going on, and there are a lot of biases that we can say have been the results of decisions made with AI. Um, there are instances where you cannot reproduce what has been built. Sometimes people cannot even explain how the models are making the decisions they're making. So it's really important to always consider ethics when using AI to make decisions. However, that doesn't mean we should shy away from it because this technology, as it's growing, a lot of people are raising questions and a lot of frameworks are being built to help us build ethical AI solutions. And so some of the terms are used like explainability or reproducibility as an example. There are frameworks that have been built that will govern developers in building solutions that more or less devoid of biases, as an example. So I don't know if the person is asking as just to know about ethics, but my cue on it is that yes, we are using it to make decisions, and there are people involved. And so ethical considerations can never be, are not, we can never overlook that. But there are frameworks out there that can guide us as leaders, that can guide us as professionals in building ethical solutions so that the decisions that we make are more or less, equitable, irrespective of the recipients or who the recipients or who the um, I don't know, benefactors or the people that use, or the decisions from these AI solutions that we build.
Yeah. Jenny, I'm going to turn this to you a little bit too, because I interpret the question a little bit around, is it ethical for us to use AI in decision making? So take it from the perspective of a leader running a team and you've asked them to work on a project and come up with recommendations, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would your advice or guidance be for them around this in sharing with their team?
It's a good question. I think it's the same. It's the same as when we look at it from the human side, it's ownership. And so if you see me write it, I've used my best friend. My best friend is somebody very artificial, but it's like that catalyst and that resource almost. And I really liked what Kwame said in terms of I know that I have bias. We all have it, 152 different ones at least. It might be even higher than that these days. And we, society, built this AI, so it's going to have bias too. And if we challenge, if you're in the habit of challenging your own thinking towards that critical point, there's nothing wrong with being in the habit of challenging the catalyst that you use for that decision making. And so I think, the leader's responsibility there is A, own it if you're using it, right? There's no disgrace in that at all. It all really feels like one big experiment, but it's one that's great. We're constantly moving forwards with it. So it's a great experiment, but the experiments don't always do the right thing all the time. And so just having that in conversation helps towards that critical thinking. And so one of our fears always is we're going to lose the human touch. Not at all. This is just a catalyst that accelerates our human conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you, Jenny, because for a lot of us, when we make these decisions, we are using our experience, we are
Mm-hmm.
using our intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we use gut feel. So we are doing the exact same thing. Now, here we are making informed decisions when we pair ourselves with this enhancer, which is AI. Because now it's no longer just intuition, but we're getting some insights based on facts and figures or data that has been collected. And we pair that with our gut feel and our experience and everything. And so the result of that is that now our decisions are well informed. And in some cases, we are even able to simulate to see which outcomes will yield the best results before we even move ahead in making the decision. So
Mm.
um, we have companions in AI, and so we should pair
Yeah.
ourselves with them as opposed to,
Yeah.
shying away from them. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it's okay too and I think, Kwame, I think you mentioned this far more eloquently than I will, but it's sometimes I find that whatever AI model, and my use is limited, but it hallucinates or it gets stuck in old information. And obviously we're constantly looking for the better, the new, the different way. And so constantly challenging it and spreading its opinion, spreading where it's pulling its data from. One that I learned from another SAT instructor recently is something along the lines of, using all publicly available data or something like that. So it
No.
doesn't just go on what it's learned already from my interaction with it, it's spreading again. And then that that changes it. And really what we're looking for is all the nuggets and the connections that help us to make the best way forward.
Yeah.
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 There could be a whole course on prompting the various AI tools that are out there, right? There is an
Oh
art
yeah,
to
100%.
writing great prompts. Um, but I want to take this back up a higher level now with respect to AI and leaders dealing with their teams in AI. Couple questions here, Kwame, around privacy. So how can we protect the privacy and integrity of our organization when using AI platforms? What safeguards should we be considering? Which is also tied in with another question I caught in the chat around how can the different AI engines protect privacy? I understand that if you enter data, it is quote unquote caught in the internet. So how can you manage that? So I think there's a bigger question here around policy and use case of AI in an organization, which is probably why so many organizations are struggling to figure out how to use it. But is there also a practical thing there that you can tell us about, how does Chat GPT treat data and anything that you might upload to it?
Yeah, so for most of these tools that are available, they do have in their terms as to how they use your data. And frankly, they are leveraging the models which have been built, but there are also organizations that make profit. And so most times they would want to collect your data. So the truth is that most of these platforms would collect your data. When you upload your data or when you put in these prompts, they are going on a third party cloud infrastructure, which you and I may not know where it sits. Sometimes they'll say it sits in the US for sure, it sits in Canada, it's in China, it's in Europe somewhere. So some of the privacy concerns we have are valid. And the safeguards we have should the approach to safeguarding our privacy should be basically the same approach we've taken with our organizational data. So if your data is confidential or it has some secret source in your organization or is for your organization, you don't upload that to a tool that is going to take your data and put it on a public cloud, because then it becomes available. In fact, in ChatGPT and some of these other tools, they also retrain with the information that you provide. And not many people know that you can opt out of it, right? Even LinkedIn has that. And recently they're training it, and so you have to go and opt out of it. But it wasn't publicly announced. So only a few people know, and then you opt out of it. And so the data you put there is going to be used to be retrained. And then now your data is completely out there. So don't put confidential information out there. But another thing you can also do is that these tools, or I would say the models, are available. There are so many powerful ones that are open source. Now, you may not have the team in-house, but you can bring this in-house and build solutions for your organization. And these solutions will be secured by your internal protocols. So your internal security system that you have, your firewalls, and so on and so forth. So now, even when people leverage them and they use the tools, they apply the tools, the confidential information you have in your organization, it is not going to a public cloud, but it is going to your on-prem infrastructure, and so that is more secure. Tools like Copilot, I think from Microsoft, they say that it's going to be in your own private infrastructure, even though because you work with Microsoft. So they are also aware of this, and they continue to make sure that it's secure for organizations so that it's more appealing for people to embrace the technology.
Yeah, the internal Copilot versus the quote unquote Microsoft Copilot is going to be an interesting thing to see how it rolls out. It's kind of ironic when you consider that ChatGPT and Sam Altman have kind of crawled every piece of data ever available, and he speaks in his hushed tones about how they're concerned about it, and then he gets upset when DeepSeek essentially goes and crawls everything that ChatGPT has done. But that's a different TED Talk. So
Yeah, actually, I mean, Copilot is also powered by OpenAI model. So
yeah,
the same model that is powering ChatGPT is the same model powering um,
yeah,
Copilot, and same as Perplexity and all these. Basically, we're all using the same models. And the point I want to make is that If you have your own infrastructure and you're comfortable with it, you have your security protocols, you can get a few people to come in, they can bring those same capabilities into your organization and you'll be able to leverage it to the full.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a caveat. You will be paying infrastructure cost. It's
Yes.
very cheap when you're doing this, but once you bring it in, there is a little bit of cost that you have to be aware of. But it's a trade-off, right? Security
Yeah.
versus, yeah. So you just have to balance it, and yeah.
Yeah. And I think if you bring it back to, leadership and how somebody running a team should discuss this with them, it's around, you wouldn't, we've all been brought up to realize, once you send an email, it's out there for anybody. Once you put something into Chat GPT or whatever model, it's probably out there for anybody. So just use some common sense and thinking around how you're going to do that. All the more reason to leverage the tool as a thinking partner, prompt it to ask you questions that makes you think differently versus using the tool to answer the questions. I don't know. I'll just leave it at that. Speaking of questions, um, here's another great one is how do we reassure team members who may be feeling offended or replaceable with the introduction of AI into our regular processes? So, is AI coming to take our jobs, Kwame?
Yeah. Um, so just a quick question. Is this, will we have a time to go through the information we had, or I should just look
Yeah,
up where they
just
fit so
yeah,
I can
we
just
will
intro.
we will wrap up. We'll start wrapping up about 8:40, 8:45, and you can run through the big ideas.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but yeah.
So then, because there's a little bit of it in one of them, but with that, we hear this all the time. People being afraid of AI replacing them. And I think it's a valid concern. The truth is that for some routine tasks, some of us have been doing the same thing for 20 years. And even when you wake us up at 4 a.m., we can tell you the exact same because nothing changes. It's a routine. For those tasks, then it will be very easy for somebody for it to be replaced because you can teach a computer to do the exact same thing. However, you can never remove the human out of the loop. The people who will win are the people who are adaptable. And that's why we spoke about mindset. Because in my experience, every time something has been automated, there are new roles that have been created. In fact, sometimes even more. We just have to be adaptable and open to learning new things. Then we will never have to have that fear of being replaced. In fact, there are a lot of creativity that we have as humans, things that computer can never be able to do. And so when we automate this routine task, it free us the time to do what we are actually good at, right? So yes, there is that concern that I'm going to be replaced, but I will tell you, in my experience, whenever something is automated or when AI is brought in, it always creates new opportunities. And I'll give you other examples
Mhm.
that there are other things, other technologies that came up that had nothing to do with AI, right? People used to print maps. We don't buy them anymore. But the truth is, are they out of business? It would just depend on their mindset. Newspapers, we used to buy them all the time. Now, those newspaper organizations that are innovative decided that what did they do? Would they just stop uh, broadcasting news? No, they moved to having it online and having a subscription model, right? So technology will always, new technologies will come. We're going to advance, and there will be some displacements, but the ones who will win are the ones with the adaptable who are adaptable to those new technologies and embrace them and willing to learn new things. And there are always amazing opportunities that I have seen from experience whenever AI is brought into an organization for the people that work. Never has people have to be fired because of that. They are moved to different things or different tasks.
Yeah. Jenny, what does that trigger for you as you think, you speak about seeing other various organizations in your daily work, this concern about AI replacing roles. What Kwame talked about here was the need to be adaptable. I'm just Was it trigger for you from a leadership perspective?
Yeah, and in adaptability, flexibility, those are sort of kale of the day conversations, and but so true. And I think the key in there that Kwame mentioned is learning. And it's interesting when you look at learning, as adults, we're generally hesitant to learn. It's another thing that changed. Like, X number of years ago, when you took your degree, the life of that degree was forever. And
Mhm.
you had the knowledge and you were an expert. And now, the half-life of a degree is not long at all because everything's constantly changing. And as adults, when we learn, we want to get it and we want to be good at it straight away. And that's not how learning works. Learning requires us to sort of play in it. It's a little bit messy, it's a little bit uncomfortable. We might not get it right straight away. And so I think it's that kind of embracing the fact that there is a different way and it might be a better way. And what does that look like? And that requires us to leave. Kwame, described it. You could wake up at 4 o'clock and describe everything without even thinking twice. That's your comfort zone. And we've got to dabble in an area that's a little bit ambiguous, a little bit uncertain, and not quite so comfortable until it is. And the more you dabble in it, then it becomes that way. But it's having it's courage sometimes, I think, to say, I don't know, let's try and figure this out, or let's find somebody to help us in that conversation. And those aren't necessarily practices that we've been doing all the time. It's new to a lot of us.
Absolutely. Couple other questions that have popped up here. There are so many different AI LLMs being developed. Kwame, how do you suggest we go about contrasting and comparing different tools without actually knowing how they are built? The change is so fast, there's a risk of obsolescence and wasted effort if businesses try to incorporate them only to have them replaced a few months later. This is all going so quick. How do we keep up?
Yeah, and that's a question the entire world is asking, where everybody is asking ourselves. This is going at a super fast rate. In fact, I'm sure we all know about DeepSeek and how all of a sudden, as soon as it came, stocks like Nvidia stock and others plummet, or they lost at least, what was it, 18%. Um, Things that people never anticipated. So it is true, and it's tough for us to keep up with it. But as far as knowing which tools to use, I would just say, go ahead, use them, try them. At least try them for free. They're all good at certain things, you know. So for instance, when it comes to, there's a lot of LLM conversation here. So if I want to use that, if you want to generate images as an example, if you go to ChatGPT and you use DALL-E to generate images versus if you go to Midjourney to generate images, you just realize the difference. You realize that, oh, Midjourney is actually really good at generating amazing images, right? So this is what it is for. But if I want to generate some content for anything, maybe it's a marketing campaign, and I compare Midjourney to ChatGPT, it's very obvious to me that this is where ChatGPT shines. So
Mm.
I would say try them. There are other ones for people are using it for even video now. So yeah, videos, music generation. Is difficult to for you. In fact, for me, the way I would know is by using them and by playing with them. And the team works on it. And then we say, okay, Claude is really good for artifact generation, or, they have the Claude artifacts for development, as an example. And it's way better than using any of the other tools. So just be open-minded, play with them, because the underlying there is one core truth is that most of these models or these applications are feeding off of the same three, four, five models.
Mm.
Like we said,
Yeah.
OpenAI's model is feeding ChatGPT, is feeding Copilot, is feeding Perplexity, is feeding, Claude, and all these tools out there, right? In
Yeah.
fact, DeepSeek, which just came out, was built off of GPT-4. So somebody has already built a foundational model, and then they built on top of it. So the underlying model are more or less the same. People are just using it to accomplish different tasks. So feel free, play with it. And I think that is also another way to educate yourself,
Yeah.
and to let you feel comfortable with using and leveraging that.
Okay. Well, that's good. Another question here. Thoughts around how different industries are going to be affected by AI, right?
Yeah,
So aviation perhaps versus, government administration versus take your pick, right? I think this could be a conversation in and of itself, but what?
yeah. And I'll be very honest with you. When somebody said they were afraid about job replacement, it is true. So different
Yep.
industries are going to be affected differently. And Y Combinator actually released something, and I read it on LinkedIn, of companies they are willing to invest in. One of them, one of the points that they came, and if you don't know, Y Combinator is a big accelerator from Silicon Valley. In fact, Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI, used to be I think, the CEO, and he's one of the founders of Y Combinator. It's been around for a long time. One of the solutions they are looking at funding is any solution that will leverage AI to fully replace or automate specific functions. And they put audit, they put compliance, they put accounting.
Mhm.
And they said they want to replace 100K a year jobs, right? So some of these, legal, compliance, accounting, it's coming. People are going to build solutions that would perform these functions. So that's how it's going to affect some. But again, you need experts to man these systems. The outputs from them are not going to be completely 100% accurate, and somebody has to critique it. And so the accountant, even though they are going to have these technology to help them, and that's the word, they are going to have these technologies to support their function or to help them. Because as an auditor, if you used to be able to audit 100 records at a time, now you're going to be able to do 1 million records, perhaps in, I don't know, in 1 hour, or 10 million of them, right? So that's one way I can think of. Now, if we spread it across different industries, I would say that some industries could probably be absorbed into, not industry is a big word, but some job functions could be absorbed into others. But all industries are going to benefit in that AI will propel them forward. AI will enhance the way they make their decisions. AI will help them reduce cost. It will help them improve some form of efficiency. And if anybody in those industries decide not to embrace it, they're going to be eaten up by the ones who embrace it. That is a fact, and there's no running away from
Yeah. Jenny, any thoughts there?
No.
No. No?
No. Well, too many to articulate them properly in here. But I do like I really would reiterate what Kwame said is the mindset initially is that embrace it and don't run from it. I think that's huge. And there are different ways I've watched the chat more than I've ever watched the chat this morning. And I know that Kwame's involved in our AI for leaders that we've been running at say I think the pilot just ran and that I mean it's going to take off like wildfire, but there's lots of opportunity even if you've joined us today knowing nothing to begin to embrace. And like Kwame's dropped, I don't know, 3 or 4 different names. Some of them I've never heard of, like this mid journey for images. Okay, I'm going to go have a look and go see. And there's part of the embracing. And if it catches you, go learn more, and then learn more, and then share what you're learning. And I think it becomes a more productive part of our conversation. There's a little note in here around teachers, and the teachers are doing a great job with it, but we're still holding back our kids from using it, which to me doesn't make a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
so, again, we have to find a way to embrace it. And I think that's a big part of the conversation too.
Yeah. It's
it.
like the
Yeah,
no.
and sorry,
Go ahead, Kwame.
I was going to say, so Jenny, you made a good point, and something that came to my mind is even in academia, just take a conference paper or a journal paper that you want to read, and look at how long it takes you to read it,
Mm.
and to be able to share the summary or the insights with your team. And then compare it with having a tool, and I'll just maybe mention another tool too if people are not familiar, like Notebook LM
Say
from
that again.
Google.
Sorry.
Notebook LM.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes.
Yeah. Having a tool like that where I can now just take that conference paper or that journal paper, include websites that maybe reference those papers. In fact, have so many different sources, upload it, and instantly, in a maximum of seconds or maybe in a minute, I have a summary of that. I can begin to query it, ask questions. I can create my own chat and begin to share it with my team who can now begin to interact with it.
Yeah.
How amazing is that? This
Yeah.
is really productivity at
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
highest level. So anyway, I
I
just thought
know
I would,
it's fascinating, right? The number of ways this could go, the number of questions this has spurred that we aren't going to be able to get to in the time that we have left, because I do want to move on to your slides. You've teased your slides a couple times, Kwame, and folks have been talking about them in the chat. And so I think what we will do is we will figure out a way, folks, to address the questions that are here. We may also, actually not may, I think we will definitely look at having Kwame back for AI 2.0 discussion, if we could call this 1.0. But Kwame, I'm going to turn it over to you and Jenny to run us through the end here. And the first slide we've kind of talked about before. This was your one big idea, and over to you.
yeah, thank you, Craig. So yeah, once now we know that big idea, and the takeaway from that is that look, as leaders is a powerful tool. AI is a powerful tool. Um, but leadership is not just about asking the right questions. It's also about making informed decisions. And AI can provide you those insights so that you don't just make the decisions blindly. So the two frameworks I have that I wanted to share with you. The first one is what we call the 3C model AI integration. And some of you might be very familiar with this. It just begs the question, how can leaders think about adopting AI in a structured way? So the 3C models are the things that you can think of. So capabilities, as an example, is what can AI actually do for us in our organization? Can it help us predict trends? Are there some workflows that we can automate? Are there some insights that we can generate? So this will help you understand what type of challenges you have and how AI can help you solve those problems. So AI as a capability or technology help you solve those problems in a meaningful way with the goal of helping you to be proactive. But again, people have spoken about, skepticism and people being afraid. So that takes us to the second C, which is culture. What is the mindset of your team? Are you fostering a data-driven mindset? If people are afraid, how can you remove those fears? Have you created some awareness in your organization in a form of training? I mean, this is one of them, right? And maybe there will be 2.0, as Craig said, and it will be another. SAID has some programs coming up. Have your team looked into any of this, and have you even just taken additional webinars, just so that this is not something foreign? Because most times we're afraid of something we don't know. The moment we begin to know more about it, then it becomes not so scary anymore. It becomes acceptable. So encourage your teams to use the tools um, to understand what these are, to learn some of the success stories, to learn some of the pitfalls, and that will help remove the fear or reduce the fear of automation. And the third C is about change management. Basically, how do we implement AI in a way that aligns with business goals? And that I would say to all of us is that just start small, make sure you test it, make sure you have some wins, and then you can scale. So as a leader, your role is to be able to balance technology, the capabilities with culture and execution. And if you're able to do this right, then you can be successful. So I thought I'll share this framework with you.
That's great.
This, yeah, the second framework that I want to share, it's something we all know, actually. We use this all the time, the decision intelligence pyramid, which is basically how do you move from data to AI-driven decisions. And this pyramid is not exclusive to AI. This pyramid is a general decision framework. In fact, I'm sure most of you have it. In business intelligence, in knowledge management, you've been using this for years. But the reason I thought I would share this is that most of us are missing how or the crucial role that AI plays in accelerating and optimizing this process. And so I thought I'll share with you because you are already using it, right? And so it will help you know the traditional way in which you've been using this framework versus how AI can enhance this pyramid. Because the traditional approach is that leaders will rely on data analysis, which are mostly manual, even though we have BI teams and reports and we extract insights. The process is slow, it is reactive, and it's also prone to bias. But we forget that. As soon as we talk about AI, we talk about bias, but we forget that our traditional approaches are also prone to bias. But with AI, it will enhance those decision makings because it helps automate the data processing, steps that we have. We are able to detect some patterns, we generate some predictive insights, and we do this faster than humans would ever do, right? And so we're still making decisions, but we are making better decisions. We're reducing uncertainties because now we can have a peek into the future, right? You can use the word foresight, I think, and this is what it helps. So just to go through the stages, what you're aware of is, you have data, which is the raw facts and figures. And traditionally, what you will do is that as a company, you will collect data from various sources. And it's good. But you can begin to bring AI in the mix. And this is how AI will help with that data part of the pyramid, is that you can automate the data collection, and this will help ensure accuracy and completeness. Because as you automate it, you build all the rules in it, you clean it automatically, and now as soon as so by the time the data gets to you, it's full of errors at a certain probability or accuracy. So the same thing you're doing, or that you've been doing for a long time, but now once you bring AI into it, you are able to do it super fast and more accurately. And that takes you to the information part of the pyramid. This is where the data is being contextualized. And today, traditionally, what we do is that once we have the data, we'll create some reports, we'll build some dashboards. And mostly, as we said, it's basically descriptive analytics, and it's good. But imagine also pairing it with AI, where now we are able to transform those data into real-time dashboard with predictive insights. As soon as the data comes in, it's being cleaned, automatically these dashboards are generated, insights are given, they are even sent out to people to begin to make decisions. And how fast can we be with that? We are taking productivity again to the next level. Now, with this information, we move on to pattern and identifying some patterns and some relationships, and that's the knowledge phase. So again, traditionally, we'll take a look at this based on our experience, we'll do some analysis, we'll interpret those data and trends manually, right? But what AI can help you do is that it will now detect hidden patterns and anomalies instantly, things that are not so obvious for us. And that is where strategies are actually built upon, decisions that will move our company forward. So with this, then we move on to the insight stage, which is strategic understanding, because traditionally this is where decision makers will rely on gut feeling to make their decisions. But now imagine pairing it with AI, where you get suggestions, you get data-driven recommendations with evidence-based reasoning on the best line of action or the best decisions to make within a particular context. And then finally, you make your decision, right? Traditionally, you take the action based on insights, wonderful. But with AI, you can even, as we mentioned, you can have some simulations, and then you'll be able to see which particular, what will yield the best outcome or the best result, right? So the takeaway here is that, AI-powered insights are not really anything. They don't mean anything unless they drive better, faster, and more strategic decisions. And this decision pyramid, which you have already been using,
Yeah.
and help you achieve that. Yeah. So my three questions for you as leaders, as you go back, please ask yourself these questions. Where is my business doing, sorry, where is my business, sorry, where in my business do I make repetitive, high-stake decisions? Because those areas are actually prime for AI assistant. So ask that and write them down. And then take a look at your team. Are they equipped to work with AI, or are they resisting it? If they're resisting it, you have a culture problem. You have a mindset problem. If they are equipped to work with AI, wonderful, right? Because it's been said that AI adoption is 50% technology and 50% mindset. So if you can cause a shift in that culture, then you are going to be successful. And the third question is, what is the one driven initiative that I can start with? And I can start small, I can test it, I can have some wins, and then I can begin to scale. So make sure that the implementation start with a targeted low risk experiment. And if you do that, there is a high potential that you're going to be successful. So my message to you as leaders today is basically to say that you as a leader, AI enhances you. It does not replace you. Okay. AI adoption is not about waiting for the future. And I know we all say, oh, we'll wait for them to fix those nuances, the hallucination problems, the bias problems, and etc. You will never get there. You have to work with it. You have to be part of the group that is shaping it, right? So the organizations that use AI effectively will definitely lead, but the ones that ignore it will be left behind. So you as a leader, just know that the best leaders don't just fear change, they shape it. So AI is here, embrace it, and ask yourself, with AI, how will you lead? So I implore you to take one insight from today, apply it within the next 30 days, and then maybe share your result with Craig and Jenny and me. At least you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can you can share it with me.
That's fantastic. Kwame, thank you. And the interesting thing is where we're at right now is probably the worst version of AI that we will have going forward. So,
Very true.
right. We're going to go the exact opposite direction. If you think the world of AI is big and grand and out there, we're going to go right back inward next time in February and look at self-reflection for leaders. And so we look forward to everybody joining us then. But Kwame, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We truly appreciate it. Jenny, thank you. As always, I appreciate all that you bring to these conversations. And everybody, thank you for joining us and sticking with us here this morning. Have yourselves a fantastic weekend, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.
Go safe, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Kwame.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Craig. Have a wonderful day.